Allie, I think, I think we're good to go. It's 6:06.
All right, let's get started. All right. Hi, everyone. I'm really excited to be here and to share more information with all of you about ranked choice voting. Just again, to introduce myself, my name is Allie Swadek. I'm the Director of Policy and Research at the New York City Campaign Finance Board. And I just want to thank the Brooklyn Borough President's Office for inviting me here to talk to you all about ranked choice voting, of course. So I'm going to share out a presentation to you guys and walk through the slides. However, if you have questions, like Jen mentioned, please do not hesitate to type them into the Q&A box or the chat box, and we'll be sure to address them at the very end. So I'm going to get started. So first and foremost, for those of you who do not know the Campaign Finance Board, I don't blame you. We are the agency that administers New York City's public matching funds program, but we also engage voters through the NYC Votes Initiative. This year, we have a specific mandate to conduct voter education and outreach, introducing ranked choice voting to New Yorkers, because this is our first year that we're using ranked choice voting. So the question on everyone's mind and why you're here, what is ranked choice voting? I'm going to abbreviate it RCV occasionally in my slides just because it takes up a lot of space and RCV is shorter. But RCV is a new way for voters to elect their representatives. Voters can rank up to 5 candidates in order of preference instead of choosing just one, which is the way we used to vote for city offices. And this gives voters more say in who wins, it increases civility, and it can lead to more diverse candidates winning. And I'm using these 3 examples because we are not the first place to use ranked choice voting. New York City, greatest city in the world, I think we all agree, but we're not the first place to use ranked choice voting. We're not at the forefront there. There are 17 other US cities, including San Francisco, Minneapolis, and Santa Fe, that use ranked choice voting. And the state of Maine does as well. So what we've seen in those places that have already used ranked choice voting is that voters respond and say that they like that they have more choices, candidates get along better, and the results are that they actually elect representatives who are more diverse. So that's why I'm mentioning those points from the previous slide. And then, of course, you see on this map here, there are a lot of places that use ranked choice voting. The states are highlighted for those of you who can't see the map. This is just a map of the United States. But not only is ranked choice voting used to elect representatives, the Academy Awards actually uses ranked choice voting to select their Best Picture winner, which isn't something that everybody knows. All right, how did we start using ranked choice voting in New York City? The 2019 Charter Revision Commission voted to create ballot question number 1 to establish ranked choice voting in primary and special elections for local office. Of course, it's effective January 1st, 2021, because again, it's new for this year. And when folks went to the ballot box to vote on this ballot question, 74% of New Yorkers voted yes to use ranked choice voting. So it's important for folks to know that this reform was approved by voters. And I always like to show this map that shows what the support was across the city. So although 74% voted yes in all of New York City, there were some areas with even greater support, those places in dark green, and that with less support as well, such as the places that are in that orange-brown color. So I always point that out for awareness. I'm talking to a mostly Brooklyn audience, so I'm talking to a mostly Brooklyn audience here. So I'll just note that Brooklyn, for the most part, saw support between 70 and as high as 87% for the ranked choice voting ballot question, which is good news for Brooklyn, but there could be folks from Staten Island out here. You may actually confront some skeptics about ranked choice voting, and that's because maybe they didn't vote yes on this ballot question. And that's okay. We're all a part of the education process and needing to learn to use ranked choice voting equally. All right, I'm going to play our video here to just start us off with a brief explanation of ranked choice voting. I really like this video because I think it shows really actively how to fill out your ballot and how the tabulation process works, which is great. If for whatever reason you cannot hear this, Jen, please jump in and let me know. But we tested this out already and it did work. So here's our ranked choice voting video, which we're really proud of.
Yeah, Allie, sorry. I can't hear you.
All right, that's okay. We'll send out a link to this video, which I actually pulled up already over here so that we can send it out to you folks. Sometimes the technology doesn't always work with the videos, but of course, the good news is that I have all of the most important points from that video in the rest of these slides. So here's a cheat sheet for what ranked choice voting looks like in New York City. So I already mentioned this. We're going to be using it starting January 1st, 2021. It's going to be used in special and primary elections for city office, but it won't be used in general elections. And this is really important because we want folks to know you're going to be using it in June, but you will not be using it in November. And you will only be using ranked choice voting in the 5 city offices of mayor, public advocate, comptroller, borough president, and city council. We're not using ranked choice voting at all for federal or state races like president, Congress, or governor. And it won't be used in also local races, but they're technically state ones for district attorney and judgeships. So Manhattan Manhattan voters are going to be voting for their district attorney in June. And that race is going to be single choice, but they're still going to be using ranked choice voting for mayor, public advocate, comptroller, borough president, and city council. So I also like to mention here that because there's going to be those 2 types of elections on some ballots, you're going to have to flip your ballot over. We've gotten used to this in the last couple of years because we've had ballot questions like the one in 2019 that voted yes to use ranked choice voting. But it's going to become much more commonplace to have longer ballots that you need to flip over and make sure that you're voting all of the races that are on your ballot. Okay, so the steps for marking a ranked choice ballot are very straightforward. And you can see on my screen here that there is just a sample of what your ranked choice voting ballot is going to look like. I have to tell you, it's going to be in black and white, so you won't have this cute little green check mark there. But the ballot is formatted like a grid. So the candidate names will appear in the columns and in the rows, and at the top of the columns, you'll have the number of your choice that you're going to be ranking those candidates. So you see here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then bubble in the circles where you want to rank folks. So your first step is you pick your first choice candidate and completely fill in the oval next to their name under the first column. And you can see in this ballot, this voter is voting for candidate B as rank 1. If you have a second choice candidate, you fill in the oval next to their name under the second column. And you can see in this sample ballot, candidate C is being ranked 2 by this voter. And then so on. So this voter ranked candidate A as their third choice, candidate E as their fourth choice, and candidate D as their fifth choice. But something that's really important for you to know is you can rank up to 5 candidates, but you can still choose to vote for only 1 candidate or 2 candidates or 3 if you prefer. I always say to folks, don't rank any candidate who you don't like or who you wouldn't want to get elected. Your first choice is your absolute favorite candidate. Your second choice is your next favorite, your second favorite, so to speak. And your third choice is someone who you think is really good, but they're your third choice. You're not super wild about them. You just like them. But if you don't like any more candidates after that, you don't need to rank a 4th or a 5th candidate. You can rank up to 5, but you can still choose to vote for only 1 candidate if you prefer. If you are interested in just ranking 1 candidate, I'll explain how to fill out your ballot in order to rank that candidate correctly in 2 more slides. But first, I want to cover a ballot marking error that's called overvoting. And that's when the voter gives multiple candidates the same rank. You can see on the slide here, this voter ranked candidate B and candidate C as their first choice. If you do this, it's basically like telling a car to drive right and left at the same time. It's not possible to do that. It's not clear to the ballot scanner who you intended to vote for your first choice. So this would unfortunately invalidate your ballot. If you vote in person, the ballot scanner will tell you that you made this error, and you can kindly ask the poll worker that's next to the ballot scanner for another ballot. Great news there. For folks who are voting by absentee, this is a really, really, really important thing to be aware of and make sure that you do not do, because of course, if you're voting by absentee, you're not feeding your own ballot into the ballot scanner. You're mailing it to the Board of Elections, or you're dropping it off in a drop box. So if you make an overvoting error, your ballot is invalidated. This is very important for folks to know. Do not overvote. Do not give multiple candidates the same rank. The second ballot marking error is called a duplicate ranking. That's when you rank a candidate more than once for multiple ranks. So if you do this, only your top ranking for them will count, and it doesn't invalidate your ballot, but you run the risk of your vote being exhausted. And that's a term that not everybody knows, so I'll explain that really quickly. This goes back to what I was saying earlier. If you want to vote for, like this voter did, candidate B for rank 1, this person also chose to vote for candidate B as their second choice, third choice, fourth choice, and fifth choice. Do not do this. It is the same as just voting for candidate B as rank 1 and leaving the rest of your choices blank, which is exactly how you should fill out the ballot if you want to do that. So to correctly fill out your ballot and just rank 1 candidate, you can rank candidate B in that first column and submit your ballot. You leave the second, third, fourth, and fifth columns blank. However, the reason why you want to rank other candidates for second, third, fourth, or fifth is because your other rankings do not harm your first choice. Your ballot never moves to your second, third, fourth, or fifth choices unless your first choice loses, is eliminated from the race, and then your vote moves to your second choice. So you're not harming your first choice if you're ranking candidates 2 through 5. And if you want to just rank 1 candidate and you don't like anybody else in the race, you can do that. But just know that it runs the risk of there is no other place for your vote to go if that candidate is eliminated. All right, and just to emphasize, this does not invalidate your ballot, again, but there is a correct way to vote for just 1 candidate, and it's just by filling in their oval in that first column. Okay, so the main takeaways for voters who are filling out their ballots. 1 is rank only 1 candidate in each numbered column. So that's simple. Do not rank the same candidate more than once. I feel like I've said this a lot, so hopefully it's really sinking in here. And then the last one is, remember, you can always ask for another ballot. We're all going to be using ranked choice voting for the first time this year, except for, of course, those lucky folks who got to vote in those 4 special elections we had earlier this year. So it's okay to make a mistake and ask for another ballot. You can actually request a new ballot 2 more times after making your first mistake. So it's okay to ask for help, and if you make an error, to ask a poll worker for a new ballot too. Again, I feel like I've repeated this a lot too, but it's really important. You can rank up to 5 candidates, but you do not need to rank a total of 5. You can choose to just rank 1. You can choose to just rank 3. It's up to you. It's your choice. That's up to you, the voter. And then if you rank 5 candidates, 5 votes do not get counted. You always only have 1 active vote at a time. Again, that goes back to what I said. Your vote only moves to your second, third, and fourth choice if your first choice is eliminated in a round. So ranking other candidates, to emphasize again, does not harm your first choice. Your vote will go towards your second, third, fourth, or fifth choice only if your top choice is eliminated. And what advocates of ranked choice voting say about this is that this gives voters more say in who wins, because you get to rank more than just your first choice candidate. You can rank your third, your second, your third, your fourth, or your fifth. Okay, so this also gets into just describing what the reasons are that you may want to rank candidates. And this goes back to what I was just saying. You have more say in who gets elected. So even if your top choice does not win, you can still help choose who does through your second, third, fourth, or fifth choices. You can also vote for your top choice first without worrying about who is likely to win. So I always say this has happened to me before where I've gone in to vote and, you know, there's a candidate who I really like, but I don't think that there's a chance that they're going to win. And I don't want to benefit another candidate who I really don't want to win by voting first for the person who I really love, but I don't think has a chance to win. Ranked choice voting eliminates that problem for you. You can vote for your true top first choice first, and then you can vote for the person that you like and you know is more electable or maybe has a better chance of winning. Maybe they're an incumbent, something like that, for second or third, if that's what you want to do. The second reason that you should rank your ballot is that you as the voter are hearing from more candidates. Because there's more people running for office, and we know that's true this year. There are so many people running for mayor. I think there's 13 people in total on the Democratic primary ballot for mayor. Because there's so many people who are running and they're not just asking for your first choice vote, voters actually hear from more candidates. They start talking about issues that appeal to them more often because they need your second, third, fourth, or fifth choice vote to win, not just your first choice. The third reason to rank is that voters elect more diverse candidates. So this is something that I hinted at the beginning. New York is not the first place to use ranked choice voting. In places that have implemented ranked choice voting, the elected officials are more representative of the communities they serve. So just some examples of that. Minneapolis elected its first 2 transgender council members in its first year of using ranked choice voting. Women make up over 50% of legislatures in 7 cities that use ranked choice voting. And in the 13 largest municipalities that use ranked choice voting, 6 have women mayors and 4 have Black, Latino, or Asian mayors. So again, I'm not saying that in New York we don't have diverse representation. I think that's definitely true. But we all know that there have, at least the highest level of office for mayor, we've never had a woman mayor. And David Dinkins is the only Black mayor we've had. So this will hopefully give us more opportunity to elect people to higher office who represent the enormous diversity of New York City. Okay, so everyone's wondering, when do I get to use ranked choice voting? Well, you will get to use ranked choice voting in the citywide primary elections, which election day is on June 22nd. Early voting starts on June 12th. I'm a really big fan of early voting. So you should all know that early voting hours were actually expanded by the Board of Elections today. There's 10 more hours on the weekend, which is amazing. And of course, for the primary elections, only voters registered to a political party holding a primary can vote in those. And to remind you again, you'll be voting for mayor, public advocate, comptroller, all 5 borough presidents, and 51 city council races. Here are some more important election dates for you related to the June primary. So first and foremost, the last day to register to vote is May 28th. So if you're not currently registered, please go do so. You can do it by going to the Board of Elections website, vote.nyc. But also, if you need to vote, if you need to register to vote, you can do so using your DMV, your state ID. So that's really cool. There's technically an online way to register, which is a great resource. I already mentioned early voting, but again, there's an exclamation point here because that's how much I love it. It's from June 12th to the 20th. June 15th is the last day to request your absentee ballot, but don't wait until then. The date may actually change to June 7th if the governor signs a bill that is on his desk. So we recommend you request it right now. The Board of Elections has put up their absentee request portal. It's very, very, very cool. You can track your ballot and its progress towards being mailed to you. And you can do that right now at nycabsentee.com. And then last but not least, primary election day is June 22nd. That's of course the last day that you can vote in the primary election. Okay, so just some resources that I know Jen already shared out our main website, voting.nyc, in the chat. That's where you can get all your general voting information. We also have a separate ranked choice voting resources page, which is very extensive. And that's at nyccfb.info/RCV resources. You should follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at NYC Votes. We have a lot of cool social media content about ranked choice voting that's coming out. And then, of course, if you would like to watch that lovely video that we created, you can do so on YouTube. We have it in English, Spanish, Chinese, Korean, and Bengali, which is amazing. And then I always like to share out the Board of Elections websites also. So their poll site locator, where you can look up your early voting, and election day site will be updated on May 7th. It may actually be updated a little bit before that, but they have to do it by May 7th. So you can find your poll site there. You can eventually also look at a sample ballot once those are finalized closer to the election. And we always recommend the day that you're going to vote is the day you should check your poll site, because there could be changes to your election day poll site that for any number of reasons that occur on the day of the election. So make sure you check your poll site before you head out to vote. And then also the Board of Elections has really, really valuable information on how to vote accessibly using a ballot marking device, and how to request an absentee ballot using how to request an accessible absentee ballot, which is an incredible resource, again, that they provided to New York City voters. And then, of course, you can follow them on Twitter and Instagram too, at VOE-NYC. Okay, I know that in the audience today, there may be folks who are involved in other organizations as well. And if you're interested in having the Campaign Finance Board come and talk to any of your organization's regular meetings, please do not hesitate to reach out. You can do so by reaching out to me directly, aswatek@nyccfb.info, or to our NYC Votes email address that's also on the screen here, nycvotes@nyccfb.info. Okay, and that's the end of my presentation here for folks. If we want to go to take some questions.
Thank you so much, Allie. That was really fantastic. A lot of great information, a lot of questions in my own head answered. And I fancy myself a little bit of an expert in this. If anyone better talk to me about RCV. But we do have some questions in the chat. We also have some, I think, 1 or 2 hands raised. But first, I just want to ask an administrative question that was actually asked in the chat. Can we put links or links and plain text into the chat so that folks are able to directly copy and paste and or go directly to the links, like from your presentation?
Yes.
Okay.
I can totally do that.
Maybe you, if you want to share that with me, there's the plain text, I can put it in so that while you're answering other substantive questions, maybe I can help out with that. So that's the first question. The second question, so the first question that we received via email from Lorraine, and Lorraine, if you're on, you can raise your hand and ask it yourself via video, but I'm also happy to read it. If you only want to pick one person on the ballot, can you indicate that person's name 5 times? Well, I suppose you've in some ways already answered that through your presentation. But I like the next part of this. I understand there might be some consequences if I do that. However, I'm counting on the person I choose to be the winner. So I appreciate the question. I think, again, but just in case somebody wasn't listening prior or didn't join prior, could you just give like a succinct answer on that about voting 5 times?
Yeah, so we do not recommend that you do that. That's technically not filling out your ballot correctly, but you can choose to vote for just one person if you want to. The correct way to do that is to bubble in the circle under the first column to indicate that they're your first choice, and to leave 2 through 5 or 2 through whatever the rest of the columns are blank. It's as easy as that. However, if you don't rank the rest of your ballot, you miss out on all the fun of ranked choice voting. if your first choice candidate is eliminated, there's nowhere else for your ballot to go. The term of art, and you may have heard me say this in the presentation, is exhausted ballot. It means that your ballot got tired. There was nowhere else for it to go. Your candidate was eliminated, they lost. And the cool thing about ranked choice voting is if your first choice candidate is eliminated, your vote can go to your second choice then too. If you don't have a second choice that's different from your first choice, there's no place for your ballot to go. So you miss out on the fun of ranked choice voting.
Very good. Thank you. Also in the chat, this is an interesting question too, from Luis. What are the pros and cons of voting for one or two candidates? Which kind of has two components to it and a little bit of strategy and thoughtfulness. So I appreciate that question.
So I would say, okay, so I'll first start with the pros of voting for one or two candidates is there's a place for your vote to go if your first choice is eliminated. But I keep saying this, don't vote for a candidate that you don't like or who you don't want to win. Like I say this like almost as a joke, but your first favorite candidate is your first choice. Your second favorite candidate is your second choice. Your third favorite candidate is your third choice. But then if you run out of favorite candidates, do not rank people you don't like. So it's okay to leave ranks blank, to vote only for folks that you think would make good elected officials, for people that you think share your opinions on issues and who you think would make a good elected official. If you don't think they would be a good elected official, do not rank them.
And you know, just now while we were talking, I thought of my own question. Would you mind if I asked one of my own questions?
Go for it.
If there are only two people running in a race or three people running in a race, which is not it's not so common in this election cycle, right? Will it only go to the three categories? It will not extend out to five.
Correct. Yeah. So we're not setting you up for failure like that. There will only be the number of ranks of candidates who are running. And then it kind of doesn't make sense intuitively. If there's two candidates running, there will still be two ranks, but that's because don't forget, folks, you can vote for a write-in candidate. So the way that you would do that is just in the write-in box, you write in the candidate's name, and then you rank them the appropriate rank that you want to put them.
And in that kind of situation, you would leave all of your bubbles blank. Is that correct?
Well, it will only have two columns. So, yeah.
Okay.
Interesting. So in that race too, mathematically, if you're voting for someone for first, and then even if you voted for the only other person that's running as two, you're not going to actually end up into a ranked choice ballot in that case.
Right. Great. Jeff, do you have a question from somebody who wrote in?
There was one about someone who had not received their absentee ballot yet, even though they put it in. Can you speak about the timing of when people might receive them?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So you can request your absentee ballot now, but the ballot isn't finalized actually. So it has the Board of Elections has to wait for all of the candidates lists to be finalized. That's happening within the next couple of weeks. Then they print your ballot and mail it to you. So you I think the law requires the first mailing to be 45 days before the election. So if you're really on top of your game and you requested your absentee ballot, you probably would be getting it mailed in the next 2 or 3 weeks to your house. But it's normal for you to have not received it right now because your ballot hasn't been created yet.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think is it on a rolling basis or is there, well, if it's not printed, it can't go out yet. So, yeah.
But then if you request your ballot, I don't know, like June 1st, let's say, although don't recommend that. You should do it right now. I'll actually type in the link in the chat right now for everybody. There's there is a rolling mail out. So like, it's not like you get one chance and then they'll mail them all out. The Board of Elections is constantly mailing out absentee ballots once your ballots are available, and you'll receive them pretty quickly once the ballot is available.
And I know you're here speaking to us from CFB about how to vote, and there are so many other issues related to voting. But if somebody has a problem where they think, oh, well, I've requested this a long time ago and I still haven't gotten it, and we're getting close, what is the entity that they should be reaching out to? Is it BOE? Can CFB help? I don't know the answer.
Yeah, so the Board of Elections, we're in charge of giving information to voters and making sure that they know where to find resources. But I'm not printing your absentee ballot, is what I always say. And I also am not training poll workers. The actual administration piece of the election is still done by the Board of Elections. So short answer, you should reach out to the Board of Elections. But the cool thing about the absentee ballot request portal that they started, and I just put the link in the chat for folks, is that when you request through that portal, you actually get a tracking number, and you can look up your absentee ballot request and you'll see it move through their system, which is very cool. And I think it does reduce the amount of problems associated with requesting an absentee ballot and kind of, trying to get through the phone line. We saw that a lot in 2020 because there was so much interest in absentee voting that the phone lines got backed up. Cool thing about the tracker is you can kind of seek out that information yourself and see, oh, great, like they mailed it out and I'm just waiting to get it. Or, I returned it and they've received it, but it just hasn't been processed yet. It'll give you that level of information, which is really cool.
We have some questions in the Q&A as well. So I'll just go to one of them. How does a candidate get eliminated? And how is vote integrity maintained with ranked choice voting for a candidate? And how do we know voters' first choice is being adhered to?
Great question. So the way that results are going to be reported, I'll start with this first, and then I'm actually going to share my screen back so that we can just go through some slides that I think will help people understand how the votes are counted. And I apologize again, it's very well covered in the video, but I do also have some fun slides for you folks. So the way that the results are going to be reported for the first night of results, they're called unofficial results. It's the night of election day. It will include all in-person votes. So early voting and election day. And what the Board of Elections is going to do is they're going to post all first choice votes. And it's basically the same as we report unofficial election results for single choice elections. But the reason why they're doing that is because the process for ranked choice voting, you have to wait for absentee ballots to be returned. As we know, you have a little bit of time where you can mail it on election day, and it can take a bit to get to the Board of Elections office. But then the Board of Elections has to open all those absentee ballots, and any person who has the ability to fix a problem on their absentee ballot envelope has a couple more days to do that. So you need all your first choice votes first in order to run through the ranked choice voting tabulation system. And I'm going to start to just do a short screen share for you folks so that this can be explained a little better, because I think the visuals are very important for this piece. So the reason why you need all first choices is because in ranked choice voting, the first step in round one is to tabulate all those first choice votes. If one candidate receives greater than 50% of all those first choice votes, they win the election outright. And I always say the reason why this is because it's not physically possible for any other candidate to get more than 50% if someone already has. So in this case, you're seeing on the screen here, all the first choice votes are counted. Candidate B has 54% of the vote. They win outright in this race. We actually saw that happen in the special election that took place in Queens, the very first one, District 24. The candidate won outright with more than 50% of the vote. However, if no candidate earns more than 50% of first choice votes, then you understand that like ranked choice voting tabulation proceeds into rounds. So we can see here, no candidate has over 50%. We're going to round 2, where we start eliminating candidates and looking at voter second choices. So each round, the candidate with the fewest votes is eliminated. In round 2, we can see here in our fake election that's happening on the screen, candidate D was imagine this was my first choice for this election. Candidate D is my first choice on my ballot. You can see I bubbled in candidate D as rank 1. And you can see from the previous slide, we carried over those first choice totals. Candidate D also happens to have the lowest number of votes in this round. So that's the candidate that would be eliminated. Candidate D is eliminated. Let's say 12% of voters, that's on the screen here, who voted for candidate D, that includes me as a voter, as you can see in my ballot. My vote goes to my next choice on my ballot, which is candidate C as rank 2. Jeff, you may have voted for candidate B as your rank 2 if you voted for candidate D first, and your vote goes to your second choice, candidate B. So this repeats, and you end up with the votes being distributed in each round. The losing candidate, again, in this case, it's candidate D. You can see those orange votes, the voters who voted for candidate D first, voted for A, B, and C second, and that's where their vote goes next. So again, in each round, the candidate with the fewest votes is eliminated. They lost the round. The candidate who lost round 3 is candidate C. So we see the 24% of voters whose vote is with candidate C right now go to their next choice on their ballot. And that's why you want to vote for people 3rd and 4th, because if you can see in my sample ballot here, I, as a voter, keep voting for the candidate that's losing the rounds. So my vote's all the way in my 3rd choice, which is candidate B now. And you can see the votes are distributed out for folks who voted for candidate C. And we end up with a winner when there's only 2 candidates left. The candidate with the most votes wins. In this case, that's candidate B. So technically, as a voter, even though I didn't vote for candidate B first, I ended up helping candidate B get elected because they were my 3rd choice. And that's where my vote lay in the final round, if that makes sense. So again, hope that clarifies.
So you would call that a non-exhausted vote?
Correct, because exactly.
A less than tired vote, a very perky vote.
My ballot is living. It's alive and well. It's with candidate B. There's folks who are, you know what, you didn't like candidate A or candidate B, and that's okay too. Your exhausted ballot can be as a result of you didn't fill out the whole ballot and make all your rankings, or you didn't vote for the final 2 candidates. And that's up to you. Again, it's your choice, ranked choice voting.
Awesome. Oh, I guess Jeff, you asked the last question, so I'll ask the next one. This is this I think kind of you answered most of this, but if you could respond to it in the framework that the questioner asked it from Wilfredo in the chat. Can you give a scenario under which 2nd and 3rd choice will be counted and a scenario under which successive votes will not be counted? Again, like you kind of answered that, but like just to directly respond to that.
Yeah, so we saw counting go into round 9 in one of the Bronx special elections because there were 10 candidates running in that race. So again, the rounds proceed until there's 2 candidates at the very end. Whoever has the most votes is the winner. Your vote in that race could very easily have ended up being with your 3rd or even 4th or 5th choice candidate. And we saw that play out for some folks who voted for one of the final 2 candidates as their 4th or 5th choice.
Cool, thank you.
One of the questions in the Q&A is this going to be the new now? And I think that kind of combines with another question I had is why hasn't New York State done, or why doesn't New York State do ranked choice voting?
So really simple answer for the New York State question is just that the New York City Charter is the is only dictates how to elect city offices. So the city charter can't tell the state how to elect the governor or the state senate or state assembly. But in New York City, we can vote on ballot questions that change how we elect our city offices. So that's a pretty straightforward answer. And we had that referendum in 2019, and about 75% of voters who voted in that election voted yes on that ballot question. So I actually don't even know what mechanism you would be able to put a ballot question on the ballot in New York State.
I think you have to amend the state constitution.
Yeah, I think that you would have to. So, and that's its own complicated procedure. Amending the charter is actually a lot easier. You would just vote yes on a ballot question. And then is this the new now? So we're using it in 2021. It's going to be used for primary and special elections. And it's not so much that we're testing it out, because this did change the law permanently. But another thing to know is you can always change the city charter with another ballot question. So there could be another cooler way of voting that we think up within the next couple of years, and maybe that's how we're voting in 20 years. Who knows? We've used a lot of different ways of voting to elect our representatives in New York. Some folks in the audience may remember I have never voted in a community school board election because we stopped doing that in 1997 and I wasn't allowed to vote then. But some folks in the audience may remember voting using a ranked system for community school boards. So we've used a lot of different ways to elect our representatives in New York, and this is kind of just another new way.
So it's here to stay.
It's here.
I'm not asking you
until another change happens.
The new now. I like that branding.
Yeah, me too. That's it's catchy.
We'll have to give credit to our participant who asked that question, Tracy. Thank you, Tracy.
I think it's Tracy. Yeah.
So another question in the Q&A from Tendai is there going to be a widespread training or an advertising campaign for voters? I think we're in it right now, right?
We're in it.
This process will be wholly confusing on site to a wide section of voters. I appreciate that sentiment. So I think, this part of that is this, right? But speak more to outreach, and also, we should ask everybody who was here who cares about this and is interested to send out the message and educate friends and neighbors, right?
Totally. This is absolutely part of that process. I keep saying that there's kind of for educating all I think it's 3.8 million people who are registered to a political party having an election in June. In order to do that, I can't talk to all 3.8 million of those people. But this is the first step, right? Like, you're here, you're learning about it. You can tell your friends and family about ranked choice voting. We have a long list of links to send out to you folks. And I saw that someone also wanted a copy of the presentation, and I'm very willing to share that out to anybody who registered. I'm sure it can be distributed. But we will also have an advertising campaign. I keep joking about this, but you're probably going to get sick of hearing about ranked choice voting pretty soon, because there's going to be a subway campaign. There's going to be the sides of buses. Every candidate's going to be talking about it. We're running TV ads, newspapers, radio advertisements. It's going to truly be all over the city. So you may not be seeing advertisements right now. That's because most folks, surprisingly, I know that I can't believe it since I've been talking about this all year, but most folks haven't really clicked into paying attention to the primary election. We're just kicking into gear now. The CFB, we're going to have a debates program for all the citywide offices. That's starting May 16th. We will have a voter guide mailed to every single voter in New York. It will detail who's running for office in your district. You'll get a little blurb of information about the candidate, how to follow them on social media, where to go to get more information on their website. That'll also have ranked choice voting information in it. However, if you're one of those people that does not get reached by any of those means of advertising and outreach, The Board of Elections has done a really good job of creating an explainer palm card, just like a cute postcard. It's really colorful. It actually looks like a little bit like this, which you probably already got this in the mail too if you're a registered voter, explaining ranked choice voting. So if you go to the poll site, they will have that explainer document, and poll workers are going to be trained ahead of the election to answer any questions. The ballot directions are also very clear, which is a ranked choice race and which isn't. So I think what I've been telling folks is it's okay to be a little overwhelmed by this, and it is a little confusing because we've never used it before. So just know that you're going to come to the poll site when you go to vote in person. There's going to be information and resources there, but also feel free to bring your voter guide with you. You're going to have like a copy of how to do all these things right there for you. And then, of course, for folks who are voting by absentee, the Board of Elections is also mailing out an explainer within your ballot mailing. So I think that there's understandable like anxiety, I think, because this is new, but you're going to hear a lot about ranked choice voting very soon. And this is just me talking to you is just a very small part of that.
Thanks, Allie. Does anybody want to ask a question, a video question? Because I'm sick of looking at myself, and as much as I adore Jeff Lowell and Allie, I wouldn't mind seeing somebody else, just their face. Is there anybody else who's hand raised who would like to ask a question?
Hi.
I hear voices, but I don't see people. But
Okay.
It was just something about it was so horrible. 90s and yawn. I was like, I've been screaming.
I think there's man.
I think that maybe somebody has done.
I had a different bucket
Him or
and a small
herself and
bucket
is
came
walking
back
down
in
the
the
street or
spring
something.
and it's missing, so I'm not complaining.
When I look up,
We might
Okay.
have invited too many people.
Maybe so. Maybe I started a cacophony of questions about RCV. Okay, so let's go back to muting everybody else. It was a good initiative, but maybe we're still working through our technology here. Jeff, do you have another question queued up from folks who are asking questions? I think maybe let's do like 3 more questions.
Sure. So one of the questions is, what are some of the best practices? Other cities have done this. I know notably. Any best practices from other cities doing this?
Yeah, so we ended up speaking to folks in Minnesota and in California who have been using ranked choice voting going on for almost 20 years now. So they had a lot of feedback for us on things like being able to show a very basic sample ballot so that folks understand what they're going to be looking at. I think that one of the best pieces of advice that we got was to make sure that like you're not just talking about ranked choice voting, because you need to remind people an election is taking place at all. We have pretty low turnout in New York City for municipal races, but this is a huge year. We're electing a brand new mayor. Bill de Blasio is term limited out, so we're electing a whole new mayor. This is a really big and important year, and I think for especially just given the events of the last year, we've seen how important it is to have local government be really responsive to its citizens. So I think that hopefully we'll end up reminding enough people that the election is taking place and that they'll be using ranked choice voting. But it's important to also give people a reason to turn out. And I think it's important to just remember, you know, city elected officials have a lot of power. Our budget is massive, and we fund a lot of social programs that are incredibly important. And the mayor is one of those people, and your city council members are some of those people that decide how that money gets spent. So it's a great reason to turn out to vote and to use ranked choice voting to do it.
I would also just add that runoff elections have even lower turnout and cost money.
Yeah, runoff elections is the one thing I can say with certainty ranked choice voting has eliminated. So we do not have those.
Right, and not that this is a question, I'm just kind of speaking, but like there was at some point a confusion about like what is IRV versus RCV, and like RCV, does RCV's things, but it also, takes care of the IRV being instant runoff voting, which is a solution to, every time we've seen a runoff election in the city, it's been, a huge waste of money, and probably just not the best democratic, pursuit.
Yeah, the runoff election took place for citywide races, particularly in the primary. If no one got over 40% of the vote, that would actually happen relatively often. And then you'd have to turn out and vote again 2 weeks later. The point of ranked choice voting is it simulates that runoff election. You end up with two candidates at the very end. The candidate with the most votes wins. That's exactly what a runoff election is. So instant runoff voting, ranked choice voting, alternative voting, single transferable vote. There's a lot of different ways to just say you're ranking your candidates in order of preference and your vote moves through your ballot based on whether candidates are eliminated. But yeah, I've learned a lot of different terms for ranked choice voting. In Italy, they use ranked choice voting in some races, and it's called voto alternativo, which I think is my favorite name.
There is a question in the chat. I think it's important to address because this is something I think that people are concerned about is someone wrote, if you elect one person, there's empty bubbles on your tampered with after. I mean, is in other words, is ranked choice voting less secure than the normal voting regime we have now?
So long answer short is when you're voting, and I often hear this question related to absentee voting, but if your ballot is not sealed, if it is tampered with in any way, or there's an indication that someone opened up your envelope and changed your vote, or not changed your vote, but maybe filled in the circles that you left blank, then your ballot immediately gets put aside, and there's a process by which the Board of Elections confirms whether or not you submitted that ballot, basically, and what you submitted. So it's really important for people to know that. It's something that was implemented last year, and I think that's because there was that misinformation campaign about the security of absentee voting. Absentee voting is as secure as in-person voting. When you're voting in person, of course, we all know you're holding on to your ballot the whole time and you're scanning it into the machine. And as soon as you watch it get put in there, it gets counted. No one's changing your ballot. So that's the good news about, for folks who are actually concerned about that and the safety and security of your ballot, there's no better way than to go in person and vote. You are the only person who is touching your ballot the entire time that it's there.
That's a good question. So I think I had said 3. I think we're on our 3rd, but I will give it back to Jeff to see if there's one other question he wants to ask. But Louise asked a good question that I had to ask myself back in June 2020. It's hard to keep track of what day or month or year it is anymore. Do we have to sign the mailing envelope?
Yeah, this is a great question. So the envelope that you're signing when you're filling out your absentee ballot is called the oath envelope. It has a lot of words on it, is the best way for me to describe to you what the oath envelope is. And then there's a red X where you sign the oath envelope, which is great. It indicates you should sign it. After you sign the oath envelope and seal it, you want to seal it because, again, that's the envelope, that's your security envelope, so to speak. And you put that in the return envelope and you can mail it back to the Board of Elections. Don't forget to put stamps on that mailing envelope, or you can drop it off at any poll site or Board of Elections office. And the cool thing is the BOE last year implemented these really cute ballot drop boxes. They're brightly colored. You can just cut to the front of the line at any poll site, drop off your ballot, leave. It's that simple. So
It doesn't have to be in your borough. I thought that I had read that.
No, it does not. You can go to any election day poll site. or early voting poll site and drop off your ballot.
On election day, right?
You can go to early voting poll sites or election day poll sites. It's hard to not have an election day poll site within like less than 0.25 miles away from your house. There's a lot of poll sites that are open on election day. So for folks who waited until election day, I recommend just going to a poll site and dropping it off. Putting it in the mail at that point, you need to make sure that your ballot gets to the Board of Elections in time and that you put stamps on.
Which, like, honestly probably means that you have to go to the post office to get it, I was going to say timestamped, we live in this digital world, but to get it postmarked on time to ensure that it's there. So if you're going to the post office already, why not go to the BOE? It's, probably not any farther away.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the drop boxes. I think they're really great. And for folks who wait until that very last day to vote, you don't have to wait in line. So if there's a line on your election day poll site, but you have your absentee ballot, you can cut to the front and put it in the drop box, which is great.
Jeff, do you have any burning questions that must be asked before we let our wonderful guest speaker and educator, Allie, go?
I think all the questions that we had down were all addressed in one way or another. I think they were all pretty covered. I'm going to throw my email in the chat just in case people want to reach out to our office, have questions. As I've been telling Jen, I'm a nerd on this stuff, so I really like this stuff. And if you want to talk about the legalities of it, I'll talk about this for hours. So happy to answer any questions if people have them. So. And are we gonna post, did you post all the links in the chat? We did that already? Okay.
I posted the links, but we can also maybe do a follow-up email. I don't know if
I believe David said we could, so.
Yeah, super. We'll
And
include them there.
we have their contact information, so we can certainly send that around. I just put my email address in there as well. But Jeff really is the big RCV dork, although or you said nerd, I won't put words in your mouth, but I think all three of us on here are very into RCV and its intricacies. So we enjoy talking about it. But thank you, Allie. This has been incredible. Thank you for, bringing information to voters. It's the most important thing. Voting has become the hot thing, right? It should have always been, but like people are really interested in voting and making sure that their votes matter and count, and not making clerical mistakes, and understanding how like your decision making ends up affecting like down the road, right? You want to know where your vote's going to go. So I think this is incredibly important. I hope that you will, maybe, if we can steal you again sometime. I know you're very busy. There are a lot of people who want to get this information out to voters and constituents. Will join us again, but this has been incredibly helpful. I, welcome anybody who's on here who maybe came up with a question later, and or as you're going through the process of trying to obtain an absentee ballot or find whatever it is. I mean, there's also like, just even early voting is relatively new. I mean, we did that for the first time in 2019. There's a lot. So if anybody has any questions or anything, certainly reach out to me, Jeff, Allie. I think your inbox is probably crazy with all these trainings that you're doing. But we'd be happy to help assist with any kind of voter access stuff.
Yep, thank you so much for having me. I put my name and my title and an email address that you can send any voting related questions to, and someone at the Campaign Finance Board, NYC Votes, will reach out. So feel free. And let us know if you would also like to have a training for your organization.
Exactly. And if you have an idea about like a group of people, to meet, and you want to just, you can reach out to Jeff, myself, certainly somebody at CFB. We'd be happy to help coordinate that. Okay.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Allie.
Thank you to everyone for joining. Thank you, Allie. I'm glad that I did not have to give this presentation myself, so I am forever thankful. Although maybe I could have gotten Jeff to do it since he loves it so much.
Jeff, we'll work on getting you to be able to do the presentation.
Thank you. My wife will thank you. I can stop talking to her about it. Good night.
That's fair. Good night. Thank you all.